Welcome to the Paul Adefarasin podcast, our interactive 15-minute review of this week's message. We revisit the word, surface the big ideas, and give you space to reflect, pray, and act. If you'd like the full message, though, you can watch it on YouTube or listen on Spotify after this episode. My name is Paul Adefarasin.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a file that might honestly mess with your internal GPS. I mean that literally and spiritually.
Yeah.
We usually think of faith or the kingdom in terms of geography, you know. It's a place you're trying to get to. It's up there or over there.
That is the standard map. Most people operate with the idea that, well, Earth is here, heaven is somewhere else, and the goal of life is to bridge that gap. Or eventually, immigrate.
But the source material we're digging into today takes that map and basically shreds it. The core question we're tackling is, what if heaven isn't a place you go to?
What if it's a place you operate from?
Exactly.
It's the concept of living from heaven to earth. And to unpack this, we're looking at a transcript from a service at House on the Rock, held on Sunday, February 8, 2026.
And we should probably set the scene because context is everything here. This isn't some dusty lecture hall with flickering lights. This is the Rock Cathedral in Lagos.
It's a massive, vibrant venue, a really electric atmosphere.
The source describes, you've got the Lagos Metropolitan Gospel Choirs. You've got guest artist Todd Dulaney, who is a gospel heavyweight.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely tearing the house down. It's high energy, it's loud, it's celebratory. But right in the middle of this sort of rock concert vibe, Pastor Paul Adefarasin drops a theological anchor that is surprisingly dense.
It really is.
Yeah.
He presents a philosophical argument he calls progressive divine self-disclosure.
Which I have to say sounds like the title of a dissertation that I would probably fall asleep reading.
Well, it does sound academic, but the concept is actually quite gripping once you crack it open.
Yeah.
Our mission for this deep dive is to decode that phrase. Essentially, the speaker is arguing that humanity wasn't ready to handle the full data of who God is all at once.
Okay.
So history is this slow reveal. It's a striptease of truth, if you will, where God reveals his nature stage by stage as we mature.
And what I loved about this source material is that he doesn't just stick to the heavy theology. He uses some wildly entertaining analogies to make the point. We've got a breakdown of Charlie's Angels. We've got a roast of Gen Z that honestly made me wince a little.
It was a very pointed roast.
Yes. And we've got some grammar lessons that challenged the English language itself. But let's start at the bottom of the pyramid. The entire talk pivots on one specific definition.
The definition of the I am.
Right. And this is where we get into the linguistics. Adefarasin spends a lot of time breaking down verb tenses, which sounds dry, but it's actually the key to the whole argument. He contrasts I was with I am.
Right. Think about how we use language.
Yeah.
If you say I was, you're using a finite term. I was a baby. I was hungry.
I was employed.
Right.
Yeah.
It implies a beginning and an end. It implies that a state of being has stopped.
I was a baby means I grew up. I was hungry means I ate a sandwich. It's about change.
Exactly. And the speaker's point is that God defines himself as I am. There is no past tense in his nature because he doesn't change. But the speaker pushes the grammar even further to make a theological point. He suggests that to really understand it, you almost have to say I-I-S.
I-I-S, my high school English teacher would have failed me for that. That sounds like nails on a chalkboard.
It's grammatical anarchy, but it's theological gold. I-I-A implies constant, timeless existence. He isn't just a being who happens to exist. He is existence itself.
Okay, so what does that actually mean?
The argument here is that God is the battery powering reality.
Oh.
If he ceased to be the I am for even a nanosecond, everything else, the universe, you, me, this microphone, would just vaporize.
Because we don't have existence of our own. We're just borrowing it from the IIF.
That is the core claim. And this leads directly into how the source explains the Trinity. Now, this is usually where people tune out because the Trinity is confusing, 3 in 1. The math doesn't seem to work.
But I actually really like the analogy he used here. It felt very high school chemistry class.
H2O.
Right. So you have water, liquid H2O, you freeze it, you get ice, you boil it, and you get vapor or steam. Now, if I throw an ice cube at you, it feels very different than if I spray you with steam.
Hopefully you don't do either, but yes. Physically, they are distinct. The ice is hard, the vapor is intangible. But chemically...
Chemically, they are identical. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, H2O.
And that is the argument Adefarasin makes regarding the Trinity. He says the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are distinct in personhood, like ice is distinct from steam, but they're one in godhood.
They're all the I am.
They all share that same timeless, self-existent essence.
So that's the baseline reality. You have this timeless, all-powerful I am that powers the universe. But here's the problem, and this is where progressive divine self-disclosure kicks in. The speaker argues that humans, well, we're a bit slow. We couldn't handle that I am data all at once.
We would blow our circuits. If you tried to explain the concept of nuclear fusion to a toddler, you wouldn't get very far. You have to start with blocks. So God reveals himself in stages.
And stage 1 is Adam.
Adam, the first man. And this is where the speaker's personality really shines through. He paints a profile of Adam, that is. Yeah. Well, it's not the heroic figure you see in Renaissance paintings.
You know, this is where he brings in that Gen Z or Gen Alpha comparison. I laughed out loud at this part. He basically calls Adam an entitled kid.
It's a humorous observation, but it serves a serious point. The speaker notes that Adam arrived on the 6th day. Think about that. The universe was already built. The garden was planted.
The animals were named.
As the speaker puts it, the nursery was painted and the toys were bought.
Adam didn't have to lift a finger. He didn't pay the mortgage on Eden. He just woke up and everything was perfect.
And the stinging observation the speaker makes is this. We never see Adam say, thank you.
That is scathing. But it makes sense. If you've never worked for something, you assume you deserve it.
Exactly. And that defines stage 1 of the relationship, creator to creation. It was shallow as an acquaintance relationship because Adam didn't work for it. He didn't appreciate the depth of the giver. He just enjoyed the gift.
And you see how shallow it is when things go wrong. As soon as Adam messes up, he doesn't run to God. He hides.
He hides in fear. But look at his theology. Look at how he views the kingdom. To Adam, the kingdom was Eden. It was a physical, geographical spot.
It was a gated community he got kicked out of.
Precisely. So when he's banished, his entire worldview is, I have lost my location. He thinks God is back there, behind the flaming swords, and he's out here. It's a purely physical, external understanding of connection.
So that's stage 1. Entitled, shallow, and obsessed with location. God is the landlord of the nice place I used to live.
Right. So humanity needs to graduate. We move to stage 2, Abraham.
Now, Abraham is a legend in these texts. He's called the friend of God. That feels like a massive upgrade from Adam, who is basically hiding in the bushes.
It is an upgrade. But the source material argues it's still not the full picture. And this is where that Charlie's Angels analogy comes in.
I love that he referenced this. For our listeners who might be too young to know the 70s show or the 2000s movies, explain the setup.
So in Charlie's Angels, you have 3 detectives, the Angels. They work for a wealthy, mysterious benefactor named Charlie. But here's the catch. They never see Charlie.
Never.
Never. They walk into the office, they stare at a speaker box on the desk, and Charlie's voice comes out. Good morning, Angels. He gives them the mission, and they go do it.
So they see the bad guys, they see the explosions, they see the results of the mission, but they never see the face of mission control.
The speaker argues that this was Abraham's relationship with God. Abraham heard the voice. He saw the operatives, the angels, the miracles, the fire falling from the sky. He had what the transcript calls transformational experiences.
But God was still a voice in a speaker box.
He was still external.
Yeah.
Exactly. And because God wasn't constantly present, because the speaker box wasn't always on us, Abraham's faith became, well, episodic.
Episodic is a great word for it. It's like a TV show. You tune in for the episode and then it's over.
And Abraham was obsessed with building altars. Think about it. Every time God did something cool, Abraham would stop, pile up some rocks, and say, okay, God was here.
It's like marking a spot on a map. I met God at this GPS coordinate.
It's the difference between having a roommate and having a guest. You clean up when the guest is coming over. You wait for the doorbell. But when they leave, the house is empty again.
That's the altar faith.
It relies on visitation, not habitation. You are constantly chasing the next high, the next conference, the next encounter. You're waiting for the speaker box to light up.
Which brings us to stage 3. We go from Adam's garden to Abraham's altar. Then comes Moses. Does Moses get the full download?
He gets closer. In the book of Exodus, Moses actually asks God, who are you? And that's where we first get the name I am. It's a step up from Abraham just calling him Almighty. But even for Moses, the kingdom was still external.
Okay.
It was a tabernacle. It was a set of stone tablets, a pillar of cloud. It was still something you looked at, not something you looked from.
So when does the penny drop? When do we get to the actual deep dive mission here?
The speaker fast forwards to the New Testament, specifically John chapter 8. This is the pivot point of the entire message.
This is the scene where Jesus is having a very heated argument with the religious leaders of the day.
It's incredibly tense. They're questioning his authority. And they throw this line at him, "You aren't even 50 years old, and you claim to have seen Abraham." They're looking at his physical age.
And Jesus drops the theological nuclear bomb.
He doesn't say, "I was alive before Abraham." He says, "Before Abraham was, I am."
He switches to the IIS grammar.
He claims the timeless state. He is essentially saying, "I am the same voice that was in the speaker box for Abraham, but now I am standing in front of you." He claims to be the source of existence.
And this signals the final shift. The kingdom is no longer a place you go to, like Adam thought.
And it's no longer a series of altar visits like Abraham thought.
Right.
The argument is that the kingdom is now a person, and that person has relocated.
This is the aha moment. The speaker says people are still running around like Adam or Abraham. They're looking for the kingdom in places, Lagos, Tulsa, Jerusalem. They want holy ground.
But Jesus said the kingdom is not low here or low there. He said the kingdom of God is within you.
It's an internal operating system.
That changes the entire game. If the kingdom is internal, you stop looking for God to show up. He's already moved in. You don't need to build an altar. You are the altar. You become the mobile headquarters of heaven.
That sounds incredible, almost like a superhero origin story where you realize the power was inside you all along. But the transcript doesn't just leave it as a nice fluffy thought. The speaker gets very specific about what this means for your daily life. And honestly, he steps on some toes.
He definitely does. He challenges the way many people pray. He explicitly tells the audience, stop praying for breakthroughs.
Which is wild because if you listen to Christian radio or go to these conferences, breakthrough is the biggest buzzword there is. My breakthrough is coming. Praying for a breakthrough. Why would he tell them to stop?
It goes back to the I am concept. His argument is, if you are praying for a breakthrough, you are admitting that you are stuck. You are positioning yourself as an outsider trying to get in, or a victim trying to survive a siege.
You're acting like Adam locked out of the garden.
Exactly. He says if the king is inside you, you don't need a breakthrough. You need dominion. You need to realize you already have the authority. You operate from a position of victory, not a position of struggle.
So instead of begging for a wall to fall down, you realize you have the bulldozer keys in your pocket.
In a spiritual sense, yes. But he also sets some very hard boundaries. We have to report this impartially as it's a strong theological stance in the source, but he speaks very specifically against praying to Mary or the saints.
He didn't mince words there. He used the word necromancy.
He did. He called it necromancy and heresy. Now, looking at his logic without taking sides, it fits his argument about the I am. He argues that only Jesus, the God-man, can bridge the gap.
Because Jesus is the only one who has the I am battery pack.
Right. He argues that Jesus is 100% God, I am, and 100% man. Therefore, he is the only valid mediator. In the speaker's view, praying to a saint who is just a human who died is like trying to make a phone call through a disconnected line. They don't have the I am nature to transmit the signal.
It's a strict exclusivity clause, but I see how it fits the architecture of his argument. If existence comes from the I am, you have to connect through the I am.
Precisely. It's all about access.
Let's pivot to the economics of this, because he's not just talking about what you do in your prayer closet. He's talking about what you do in the boardroom. He mentions kingdom economics.
This is the call to action. If the kingdom is within you, you take it to work. He challenges the listeners to sanitize their business sectors.
Sanitize is an interesting word choice. It implies that the current systems are dirty.
It implies corruption, or at least chaos. He mentions taking authority over the economy, not just to make money, but to establish order, to bring divine integrity into systems that are failing.
And he uses a very specific example here, a testimony about a woman named Euni Mae Ivy King.
Yes, a powerful story. She was a widow, her husband passed, and suddenly the structures collapsed.
Which is a polite way of saying the family descended into chaos, legal threats, business crumbling, support systems just vanishing.
A classic crisis. By all accounts, she should have gone under. But the point of the testimony was that she didn't just survive, she stabilized the business and sent her kids to university abroad.
Wow.
The speaker uses this to illustrate that when you operate from the kingdom within, you can govern your environment even when the external support systems fail.
She didn't wait for a rescue boat. She realized she was the captain.
That's the core message. It moves the believer from being a victim of circumstance to an architect of their reality.
So if we pull all these threads together, we started with Adam, the entitled kid who thought heaven was a garden he got kicked out of.
Then we move to Abraham, the friend who thought heaven was a voice in a speaker box.
And we land on this idea that heaven is an internal operating system governed by the I am living in the human heart.
It's a trajectory from external dependency to internal authority. And the source material ends with a very high-energy musical segment by Todd Delaney singing "Victory Belongs to Jesus," which just reinforces that theme.
That the victory isn't something you chase, it's something you possess because of who is inside you.
Exactly.
It really does force you to check your mindset before you walk into the office. I mean, instead of thinking, I hope God helps me survive this meeting, you're thinking, I am bringing the atmosphere of heaven into this meeting.
It removes the excuse of distance. You can't say God feels far away if your theology says he is the very existence of your being.
That is a lot to chew on, from grammar lessons on IIS to sanitizing the economy.
It's a dense deep dive, but a fascinating look at how theology is meant to be applied to everyday life.
So here is the question we want to leave you with. If the kingdom isn't a place you go to, and it isn't a breakthrough you are waiting for, how does that change the way you handle the first crisis that hits you tomorrow morning?
If you are the mobile headquarters, maybe you don't call for help. You release the solution.
Something to think about as you own your territory this week. Thanks for diving in with us.
Until next time.
Thank you for listening. To go deeper, watch the full message on YouTube or listen to the full-length sermon on Spotify. Follow the podcast, and please share it with someone who needs it and leave your response in the Q&A. Kindly keep your heart on fire, your eyes on Jesus, knowing you are the exception. Grace and peace. We love you deeply.